and on their devices since day 1 of this round, which is day 12 of it now.
Oh, wow. Dr. Lindstedt, quick response from you before we run out of time. What you're hearing?
Well, I think we need to pray for these people as they do a very brave act. And I pray that they will get freedom, but I pray also that they'll have freedom now to receive the gospel. These are cruel leaders, and by God's grace, we're watching the world topple them over. And so I hope we'll flood in with the gospel and with aid to these people.
Indeed. Annie, I know we're going to get you back tonight on Brandon House Live. Are you going live in an hour here on our network?
Yes, sir. I'll be live in an hour on Worldview YouTube.
All right, 1 hour from now, 3 p.m. Central, 4 Eastern Standard. Annie bringing you the latest, and we'll have it again more tonight with Annie. I have also Sidney Powell with me tonight, along with others. We'll be talking about Venezuela, voting machines, and all the things that she was saying with me on clips that are going viral now. And we were called conspiracy theorists and all kinds of names, and now it's all being borne out to be true. So busy news day here and into the evening. BibleTipNow.org is Dr. Lindstedt. He's on each and every day here at 11 a.m. Central, right, Dr. Lindstedt?
11 a.m., yeah. And I want to say, Annie, God bless you you've carried this torch for years.
Indeed.
Thank you, sir.
God bless you.
Yeah, she sure has carried this torch for years. All right, guys, thank you so much. And thank you guys for your support and helping us keep going. Look at the coverage we're bringing, the way we're bringing it through the lens of a Christian biblical worldview. May God save America and the freedom fighters in Iran. Take care.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan, and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
The Ohio governor race is heating up early and it's turning personal. The latest flashpoint comes from Casey Putsch, a YouTuber turned Republican candidate who has entered the 2026 contest with a direct attack on frontrunner Vivek Ramaswamy. In a post on X, Putsch accused Ramaswamy of being a fraud and taking scholarship money meant for disadvantaged students while earning a high income. Back in December, he was also targeted from another flank. Far-right activist Nick Fuentes launched a racist tirade against him following his speech at AmFest. At the event, the Indian-origin Republican challenged conservatives to define American identity by shared values rather than race or ancestry. He also condemned racism and anti-Semitism within the MAGA movement, to which Fuentes responded with slurs and abuse, telling Ramaswamy to go back to India, mocking his family, his faith, and his children, and attacking both Indians and Jews in a profanity-laced rant. Ohio's 2026 race is still far away, but the battle lines are already drawn. The debate over who gets to define conservatism in America has only just begun.
Welcome back to Truth Thursday and back to the Rob Maness Show, our first show of the new year in 2026. The Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, we need America First governors because, friends, and you've heard me say it many times, the critical fight for our country is at the state level as much or maybe even more as it is at the federal level. We need governors who are going to put their states first and support America First policies from Washington. That is the only pathway to resolving the divide in our country today, to fight for our citizens and not the corporations, leftist and globalist organizations, or even our allies. Our citizens have to come first. Our governments are about serving us by defending us, protecting individual rights, and ensuring our prosperity. That's it. That's what it's supposed to be about, no matter what the level is. And that's first step is to defend America's culture. The culture created by our ancestors, like mine, that fought in the Continental Army. The ancestors that first created the country and making sure that all who are allowed to immigrate here are required to know, understand, and assimilate into that culture. It's time. It's time for our voices to be heard again in government at every level, and that we get the priority, not some group of people from overseas that came here as refugees yesterday or fell off the airplane yesterday here in the United States. The people that sent men to the moon first, that have lifted more people out of poverty than any in history, don't need to be pushed out of the job markets and opportunities in favor of people from other countries by our government policies like H-1B. And my guest today is Casey Putsch. Casey's an automotive entrepreneur, interesting guy, designer, invented a car. I can't wait to hear him talk about it, because we're not going to just do politics here since I got him. And he's a philanthropist, and he's a Republican candidate, as you just saw in that video, in the 2026 Ohio gubernatorial race. He's known to his over 350,000 YouTube subscribers as Casey the Car Guy. He officially entered the primary race in December of 2025 as an America First challenger to Vivek Ramaswamy. Casey, welcome to the Rob Maness Show.
Howdy, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. And I appreciate you running. I always like to thank people for running. I've run for high office myself, then 2 statewide races for U.S. Senate. And it's a challenging endeavor. And it's not just about you. It's about your family, your friends, the people that you've spent your life with, building things. All of them have to be have a certain level of commitment and resilience, aka body armor, to survive this. Are you nuts? Why did you do this?
I was just a solid American and a product of my family going back generations. I'm looking around and I couldn't stomach what I was seeing. And for me, the pain of inaction and watching what was happening outweighed any risk of action. And that's what led me here.
Yeah, and that opening video gave a little bit of taste about Ramaswamy. It's not that I dislike the gentleman. I've met him. He seems like a nice fellow. He seems sincere. But when I hear things coming out of his speeches like, hey, your ancestry doesn't matter, and the person that just fell off the boat last night and becomes a citizen is just as American as you are, when this country's got to be preserved on the foundation of that original culture and that original way of life and those original Americans and the people that have heritage that are alive today that understand that are part of keeping that culture alive of the United States of America as we intended it to be. And when we get away from that, we end up in the situation we are now, right? I mean, is that why you're challenging Vivek?
Well, you hit on a lot of profoundly important things, which I will happily mention. The reason I am challenging Vivek is he's a terrible candidate. You know, that's a man who didn't go to school in Ohio. You know, I'm third generation Buckeye. He went to Harvard and Yale, got one of his scholarships paid for by Soros family money. He's got no businesses in Ohio. He's done no philanthropic work in Ohio, built no schools despite his massive wealth. You know, these are things I've been working on my whole life to create educational programs, mentor young engineers, and get them great jobs with no help and support. Doing that here in Ohio. I got a Lifetime Achievement Award from Donald Trump, and even got to fly with the Thunderbirds because of it. But there's no support for tomorrow. Vivek can do it. He's done nothing for people. No businesses, you know. And when we talk about what is an American, you know, what is our culture? What is our roots? How far does that go back? That's something for everybody to reflect on. But for me, you know, my dad worked his behind off. He worked from 6 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night every day of the week, all through the year. We had a little public golf course. We had to do everything from maintaining the tractors and mowers to the 120 acres of grounds, looking after the public, golf, all of it as a family business. And we worked hard. We had to be responsible for ourselves. With the rest of the family, it's pretty small, but going back, proud military men. My
Mhm.
grandfather, he was a Army infantry vet, Battle of Okinawa. Now, he was an optometrist his whole life, didn't miss an Ohio State football home game for 50 years. But, that's a man who was my grandmother, his high school sweetheart, flowers, because he was going to land on the beach Easter Sunday, 1945, and he didn't think he was going to get to see tomorrow.
Mhm.
Those kind of stories and what men like that have to go through, that forges you. And that goes back, whether it was him or his brother in F-4 Phantoms, like barely getting his butt shot off in Vietnam, to
Mhm.
their father was in both world wars, and then their grandfather going back into the cavalry. And then I think of all the work my entire family's ever done to try to make our way, care about the good, wholesome conservative values that gave us a chance to do this, that build our nation as something great. How on earth can we look at anything like just going to 4th of July fireworks and not think of everything that came before us to make this happen? And so I've taken some, yeah, I mean, what he said was wrong. It was insulting to all Americans, especially Ohioans, but I'm running against him because he's a garbage candidate and clearly doesn't care about the people of Ohio.
Is so how did he if he didn't go to school in Ohio, would his mom and dad immigrated there and he was born there and raised there? Is that why
Yeah,
he's
more
in
specifically, I
Ohio?
was speaking of higher education. I think he
Mhm.
actually went to private Catholic high school, which
Okay.
is actually a little strange to me because he's Hindu, but raised Hindu, says he's Hindu now. I think that's odd.
Mhm.
Uh, and as a Christian man, I mean, hey, religious freedom is a part of our United States, but you know, Christianity is our heritage. It's just a strange thing to me. So yeah, his parents were foreign nationals from India,
Mhm.
and were not citizens before Vivek was born. So he was born here and got citizenry on a technicality. He's found success at least in a way to attract the money. Um, but I've just seen him do nothing for our culture, our people, our communities. And then he's out there lecturing us on what an
Mhm.
American is. And I think I react the same as everybody else and go, I don't think so, pal.
Yeah, I mean, when I first heard the speech, I didn't see it live, but when he got to that line, I wasn't aware that there was anything going on because it hadn't blown up in my devices yet. I was out of town or something, uh, and and he goes into that line and he talks about it doesn't matter your Americans race doesn't matter, and that's true. But then he goes right into and your ancestry doesn't matter either, how American you are. And that just flabbergasted me how he would make that kind of mistake. I mean, he's run for president of the United States. He's now running for governor. Uh, uh, he supposedly has a team around him. My goodness, somebody saw that speech, I'm sure, before he gave it. It's incredibly bad form, and you can see on social media that he's taken severe hits for that. I don't know if there's been any polling out or done since that, but I would imagine that he's probably dropped quite a bit in the polls.
Yeah, well, that's not the first thing is that speech at AmFest. Just a
Yeah.
few days before that, and this is in December, he wrote an op-ed article in the New York Times, which is typically leftist. And suffice it to say, it was all set up in a certain way. But basically, if you don't like the vet, it's because you're a racist, radical, right-wing, terrible American. And let me tell you what an American is. That
Mm.
backlashed tremendously. Now, what's strange is that article was originally entitled "What is an American?" And I'll remember that because frankly, I did a response video to him with the thumbnail said, "I'm American, comma, loser." Little pointed back, but he got such backlash. They changed the title of that article, and I don't remember specifically what it is, but to try to use that article tactically
Yeah.
and group people in with particular influences. I think perhaps Nick Fuentes, which is irrelevant, but it's a tactical thing. And frankly, I think that it's showing underlying intent and movement from Vivek, which reflects in what we see, fearful of him flooding with H-1B visas, which basically all
Yeah.
come from India, destroy a job market. This man has no conservative values. He only just became a Republican a few years ago before he started running, and apparently was
Mhm.
practicing DEI practices in his businesses before that. So these are things that have led to me simply calling him a globalist Trojan horse, because based on basic observation, That's what I think he is.
Yeah, and you're a blue collar guy, the car guy.
White today.
White
I
collar,
cleaned up
yeah.
for your show.
Yeah, that's all right, man. Hey, my wife makes me dress like this for my show. I want to be in a t-shirt.
You can
she
do
won't
more
let me
work
do
that
it.
way. Yeah.
She
Yeah,
won't
well,
let me do it.
I got busted fingers and knuckles and welding and building and working on cars and tractors and all. And yeah,
Yeah,
we get things
absolutely.
done.
I've done my share of that too. I started out as a bomb disposal technician, enlisted guy right out of high school. So my dad and my dad's dad are farmers and construction people, road construction people. My dad was in the Air Force too. We have military service on my dad's family. Every generation since the American Revolution has served, very much like your family, and that's why I took exception to what Vivek did. And at that point, before that speech, and I went back and looked at the New York Times article, I really didn't have that many issues with him, but now I've got issues with him. And I don't think there's anything he could do to get me to support him. I don't live in Ohio, so I won't be voting anyway.
Yeah.
But I do have my little voice here,
Yeah, no war analogy. I just got to say, I've been watching Vivek, especially since I've come out and the people have turned, and I'd say he's kind of like a B-17 trying to make it back across the English Channel with 2 engines shot out, half a wing, one on fire, and then chucking guns and ammunition, losing altitude, trying to make it back. And then I said, like, that's a terrible analogy because that's giving too much credit for Vivek being an American. I don't want to be mean to a B-17 like that compared to Vivek.
There you go. Well, we got to take a break, Casey. When we come back, though, I want to dive into this a little bit more. You made a video about child trafficking. Caught my attention. I loved it. I want to dive into what you're thinking about policy a little bit deeper than just the video is, but we'll play that clip when we come back with Casey Putsch, the Ohio governor candidate, the America First Ohio nationalist, I think he's called himself. He's the opposition to Vivek. We'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show.
Policy. I'll deputize a task force, specifically of ex-special ops friends of mine, to hunt and target human and child traffickers. That will be their only job, and they will be dads who are bored. Dear Washington, D.C., it's that easy. Ohio will become the most dangerous place on earth for human and child traffickers. Want an easy way to find some of them? Go hang out at Planned Parenthood.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Truth Thursday, and that man right there, Casey Putsch, is a Ohio governor candidate, and he's my guest today. And Casey, I love that clip because that's the kind of thinking from leaders that we need. We don't need leaders that are always carefully crafting a smooth message, etc. We need direct talking, but direct thinking more than ever, direct thinking leaders that know how to pull a team together and get something done right now, today, quickly, to stop these kids and stop these men and women from being harmed and in many cases raped and killed and murdered in this trafficking system that the global nations and organizations have built and continue to operate today. Welcome back, Casey. I'd like to get your thoughts on
Yes,
The
sir.
video,
Well,
the video, a little bit more on the video, but from a policy perspective, and an issues perspective on your platform, what are you thinking about when it comes to combating that trafficking?
Well, that's an offshoot of a lot of things that I think relates to law and simply protecting citizens and realizing that we have fair and balanced law and things are actually working in our best interests. You know, obviously relating to the human and child trafficking, that's something that is profoundly horrible. You know, truth about Ohio is we're at the crossroads of America. I-75 goes from Michigan all the way to Florida, and 80-90, which is basically, you know, something like New York to San Francisco, or at least West Coast. We've got rail, we've got air, we've got water's heartbeat of America, and there's a lot of that happening here, a lot. So my question is, you know, we live in a time with the information age, where you can monitor every social media. You know, you can monitor everything else going on. You can look for patterns in people and behavior. We can find these people. You're darn right we can target them. You're darn right we know where they're going. I said that little tidbit about Planned Parenthood. Let's not just disparage the organization. That's the truth of the matter. If you're sex trafficking people or sex trafficking minors, and I hear this from people that are in, you know, philanthropy relating to pro-life, they know this. People that are coming in that are not their parents, with young women that are too quiet, they're being sex trafficked. So there's many ways to combat this and target this, but are we at all? Just a little? Is it a show? I don't really care, because just with enough of the military friends that I have, just by happenstance and sharing the similar values, there's a way to make this happen. So yeah, I made that video because it was clear, it was direct, it's something that's on people's minds, and it's like, yeah, how about we just go out and combat it legally, but we just put some effort in? I think it's that easy, Washington, D.C.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I've been advocating for use of, you know, bringing our special operations forces home from the war, the endless wars. When I first ran for office, that's one of the things I was calling for, was to bring them home, station them on the southern border especially, but also some on the northern border, and intercept these trafficking highways that the cartels control on their own behalf and on behalf of others that feed that system into here. And it not only brings people in, but those folks control the lines of communication and transportation in this country enough to where they can take people off of our own streets and put them in that system and traffic them even to outside of the country. So it's a vast system, and our special ops guys could do a great job at taking care of that with the intel systems that we have today. I mean, you just saw just a snippet of what Delta Force did down in Venezuela. And I voted for using special ops
Good
forces
operation.
to do exactly that, to take care of America's interest.
Yeah, indeed. Well, and you know, another point to bring up, and not to compound the point, but I looked up some numbers a while back ago that the left was talking about school shootings. And, you know, shoot, there's like 16 young people that die a year in that. Now, I'm bringing it around, but like 200 some of young people die just going to recess and gym class normally. But then I started looking at numbers, and I'm like, 6,000 vets a year commit suicide. Why? They come back to a society that doesn't have a good place for them, where they can't use their skills, their heart, their work ethic, their discipline to make the country better, to protect us from enemies, you know, foreign, domestic, and even within. Like, there's so many ways to let them help build our future with just that, combating child trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, drugs. Heck yeah, they should be doing that. Doing works projects so they can manage and help and build beautiful things like parks and buildings and stuff, and managing that. Yeah, we should be having our vets doing that. We should be having our vets, giving them opportunities to go to school to learn, to, you know, be able to be teachers and instilling those great values in next generations, but we're not. So
they've been those programs used to exist, but I don't know any vets that really want to go into that Marxist cesspool anymore.
Well, we'll just have to change the cesspool, won't we? And
Exactly,
not forget what's going to be able to make the futures good.
And that's why we need
that's
America
what
First
it's about.
governors. That's why we need America First governors. That's why I titled this episode that, because that's one of the things that we all have to be about is fixing our public school system and get the Marxist control out of it and put American control and American values back into that system. So they're learning to read, write, do arithmetic, understand basic science, and can either go to college or go into the trades. I don't care where they go, but we got to they got to be educated and skilled enough to be able to do that, and it's just failing because they're concentrating on stupid stuff like critical race theory and how the whites are the oppressors, and it's unbelievable what our children are being indoctrinated with today. I don't want to go too far afield on that, but it's linked. It's all linked to this big thing, and that's legal immigration. Refugees being allowed and brought and paid by our tax dollars to come over here. And we've seen this thing, it was fraud blow up at probably over $9 billion. And just in Minneapolis with the Somali crowd that's up there stealing my tax dollars. Look, I pay a lot of taxes. I'm a guy that pays taxes, and a lot of them, I'm above the threshold that where some people are that apparently don't have to pay taxes in this country. And it pisses me off, Casey, that there is so much fraud just in Minneapolis that $9 billion, as a guy that has fought the war on terror and almost got killed at the Pentagon on 9/11, $9 billion to go to the terrorists in Somalia. That's exactly what's happened. And it's my understanding there's some of the same thing going on in Ohio. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's potentially worse. Ohio's at least the next largest Somali population. We have exactly the same problem. So even if, let's say, maybe it's 10% worse, it's still an absurd amount of billions of dollars being wasted. And what's it being wasted on? Immigrants? Let's say they're legal. They're from a third world. Why are we allowing legal immigrants from the third world? Can we have, if we're going to have legal immigrants, can we at least get them from somewhere that's going to help raise the bar for America? I mean, heck, immigrants from, people that come from my ancestral DNA invented the automobile, the jet engine to help get America to the moon. I don't know what Somalia's done. And then so here they're in this giant crime ring that the government's overlooking. Our current governor was quoted as saying it's the price of doing business. Are you kidding me? My God, the corruption. We're destroying the future of our children before they even have a chance to know what a future is.
What kind of state level policies are you looking at to implement to eliminate that issue? Because, we used to have federal laws, immigration laws that said something to the effect that if you have to go on public assistance, you can't immigrate to this country. You have to be employable, have a job to get here. And we don't do that now, and we're paying our tax dollars we're using our systems and paying our tax dollars to help our needy people for these people, and our needy people can't even get the same resources anymore.
Yeah, I'm going to quote my grandfather, so forgive me if I sound too World War. In terms of policy, it's you get in, you kick ass, and you take names. It has to end. First of all, there's such a much bigger team than just me running. Awesome policy people. You build the right team that share the right values to make it happen. So implementing those initiatives are where it's at. Absolutely targeting that simply waste, but fraud, my God, abuse. Where is it? Understand where the cancer is and attack it at the root. Band-aid fixes do nothing other than cost taxpayers their money, their futures, while getting nothing done and just making everything more complicated. So the simple fact of the matter is, I'm not here for fun. I'm here to make sure we have a future. And when things like that are directly destroying our future, I'm going after everyone that's involved hard, period.
Yeah. So are you committed to assisting the feds with deportation operations, even if it means using the National Guard?
100%. If I have to volunteer my day off to go in and substitute for the guys, I'll do it. That people probably won't let me, but I do it. Absolutely. No, it's full assistance with the Trump administration and ICE with what needs to happen. I've seen activists. I frankly think it was the mayor of Columbus and maybe the chief of police that looked like frankly a DEI hire going on what looked to me like leftist political activism, how we're not going to support ICE and all that. Oh, please. we're in it together. Donald Trump is the man I supported. I've been highly critical of him from time to time, but I voted for him every time, donated his campaign. He's a leader of our military and the leader of our nation. And deportations need to happen. We need to help facilitate that also so it's smoother and we don't see things like the terrible shooting that just happened. But we have to protect our borders. We have to protect our people. And we have to do things that are going to be a net gain for the state and the nation. Otherwise, we have no future and we have no nation. We have no state. And that's not acceptable.
That's exactly right. That's why it's important to acknowledge that what I call the heritage Americans are the foundation of this country, the living ones, because we carry forward our ancestors' thoughts, their thinking, their way of doing business, their way of life, and their belief systems that are the core of what makes America. And if we let that continue to be eroded, we don't have that country, and we end up with a population of third worlders that are stealing from the taxpayer. And eventually the taxpayers are going to fully recognize that, and they're not going to pay taxes anymore. That's coming. If this does not get fixed, that is coming. And that will create a whole other set of issues. And you mentioned the shooting in Minnesota, and we're going to talk some more about that after this break here. But I just wanted to say that the American people's voice, like me and you, the working people of this country, not those that currently have power or from the big rich families or the big corporations or the rich guys in the NGOs and all that, but us, the people that vote, that pay the taxes, and those kind of things, our voice is no longer heard. And there's a reason for that. You've gone on the record for that reason, but the voice that is being heard, funded by those billionaires that we're going to talk in the next segment, are the ones that were paying that woman to do that act of domestic terrorism that cost her life yesterday. And we'll be right back with Casey Putsch, candidate for the governorship of Ohio. He's the alternative to Vivek Ramaswamy, if you dare to take a look at this candidacy. We'll be right back.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
And Grok already admitted that one billionaire has more power than 10 million voters. There's 902 billionaires in the United States. 18.5 goes into 902 nearly 50 times. The billionaires in the United States alone have 50 times more power to influence the United States government than the entirety of we the fucking people. This is the conversation that was deleted by Grok. So I asked Grok, okay, what are the methods at which the normal people, the normies, can influence the government? And it lists them. And I asked it, given what you know about the power of billionaires and the elites and the wealthy and the United States government, are any of those likely to be effective at actually influencing the government to do things in the best interest of we the people? No.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Truth Thursday. My guest today is that man, Casey Putsch, the governor's candidate for the state of Ohio, also known as the car guy, a hardworking man, comes from a long line of Americans that have served this country both in peace and war and have done the things that made this country, that made this middle class we're a part of, that makes this country wealthy enough to where our politicians The idiots that they are don't even blink when they hear, well, the Somalis just in Minneapolis have stolen $9 billion and sent it to the terrorist government of Somalia. They don't even blink because we pay so many taxes because we're such hardworking people. And, you know, he's talking about the billionaires in there, but they're all linked to all these other things, the corporations, the non-government organizations that are funding people like that woman, domestic terrorist that got herself shot yesterday when she tried to kill a federal law enforcement officer and tried to obstruct them first from doing their job. People, you can protest peacefully. It's in the First Amendment, peacefully. But when you start breaking the law and you put yourself in a position where you're using a 4,500-pound special SUV or a van to hit or even try to push a federal law enforcement or anybody, even a member of the community, out of the way, it becomes a weapon, and you become a terrorist if you're trying to influence government policy, and that's exactly what happened. And George Soros and his conglomeration of billionaires are funding that crap. Casey Push, welcome back. I wanted to give you a chance to talk about the video because you're exactly right. That's why I ran for office the very first time, is because I recognize that the voice of the men and women that fund this country is no longer got a chance to be heard in the halls of Congress and the rest of our government because of this overwhelming number of dollars that a very small group of people have control of.
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, you picked the best clips. Thanks. I like that. You know, it's funny. An establishment person recently told me, it's like, I heard Casey use the F word. And I'm thinking, we're losing billions of dollars to Somalis. Billionaires have wild control over the United States government, that circumventing the actual process of our, electoral institutions. We're being destroyed from the inside out. People like Soros can fund activists and loonies to lead to what happened with the shooting, which also coincidentally also helped fund Vivek Ramaswamy's college, which I think is really weird and coincidental. It's horrific. And so, yeah, that video you saw, among others, was, we'll say, my crash out phase as a normie. I'm a car YouTuber, but looking around, I just could not take it anymore. So speak intelligently, but directly for the people, because who the heck's standing up for anything anymore? It sure as heck isn't the establishment and our gutless politicians. It sure the heck isn't billionaires and their self-interest or corporations. What happened to we the people? So me standing up and running for governor is me flipping over the last stone, seeing the contrast, realizing who I am and what I have to offer. I'm not a perfect man. Heck, there was only one perfect man and they crucified him. But I'm sure as heck going to run for office, try to save Ohio from what's to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm dead serious. The next thing to happen, if we don't get control of this fraud, and look, Minneapolis is just the very tip of the iceberg. You don't have to convince me that the Somalis are doing the same thing in Ohio. Probably the Haitians that you have there too, because they were another group that was brought in. And you have idiots like DeWine saying, well, that's just the cost of doing business. What? $18 billion or more in fraud of our tax dollars? Good Lord, man. How many countries' GDP is smaller than $18 billion? Somalia's GDP is only about $11 billion. They've probably gotten double what their GDP is every year in this fraud scheme, just out of Minneapolis and Ohio. And we haven't even talked about the damage that's happening in New York, in California, and all across this country, especially in the blue states. But we can't let the red states off the hook either, just like with Ohio. It's a red state technically. It used to be a swing state, but it shouldn't even be close to be one now, but we're in danger of losing it. And you mentioned the establishment GOP. How are you being received by the establishment GOP in Ohio?
That's a more fun question. I'm entertained by it. Yeah, Vivek is dropping in the polls in a state that leads, 10 points or more Republican red. And he is currently losing in favor with the hypothetical of Vivek actually winning the primary. I think the people of Ohio know better. He's going to let Ohio turn blue to a horrible Democrat candidate that locked down the whole state under COVID. And she quit as the health director because there was too much pressure. and the Democrats thinking they want to put her in charge of the state and F-16s in our economy. It's ridiculous across the board. So the establishment, the Republicans, see, this is kind of fun because Vivek got astroturfed in like crazy real early. And I'm not going to say anything beyond what I know, but it's my opinion that powers that be were sick of Vivek, and this was their way to get rid of him and astroturf him in real easy, and he just has to behave, and there you go. Well, he hasn't. He's been there too long, and the cracks in his facade are showing. And eventually I got to the point where I just couldn't take it anymore. I've been thinking about this for some time, but I'm an outsider. I'm a normal person that's trying to make my state and community and family better. And so I would say the analogy of how I came in to run and getting it ready was like a low altitude under the radar supersonic airstrike that nobody in the establishment saw coming. And it hit exactly perfect in exactly the right way with exactly the right contrast, where all the people that were tired of Vivek, that realize he's an establishment globalist plant that has nobody's interest in mind, go, oh my God, a real person, a car guy, yes! And the tide shifted just like that. The establishment went quiet from everything I'm hearing. They freaked out because they were thinking, is he a leftist plant or something? Which shows you how out of touch they actually are, because they could not foresee any circumstance in which an actual American and Ohioan who literally just cares and will literally risk everything they've ever built and their life to run against this will come in swinging. And that's exactly what I've done. So they've gone quiet. And frankly, I think Vivek's a little scared right now because they're seeing exactly what's happened. He quit X and Instagram. Every time I comment with other people, the public are obliterating Vivek, the Ohio GOP, any of the establishment associated with it. The backlash is unbelievable. And they just keep doubling down. The person that's his LG pick, complete establishment, just disgusting. And we're going to see what's happening. But the people are behind me because we're together for the right reasons. And the tide has shifted and it's growing.
Yeah, do you get invited to speak at Republican women's functions or county Republican events?
Yeah.
Are they inviting you to speak? Are they receiving you warmly or cold?
It's incredible. It's incredible. No, very warmly. The only people that are not playing ball with me or being cautious and quiet is the higher level. It's like the state GOP. It's the higher level and deeply entrenched rhinos, as I'd call them, because none of them are embodying the good American conservative values that is my Republican Party that I've always known. I don't know, a couple of decades before Vivek ever turned into one. But yeah, the county level, oh my God, the support is tremendous. PACs, people, age demographics, everything from retirees, military, obviously blue collar, but white collar too. It's across the board. It's unbelievable.
That's good news. That's good news. I'm always concerned about that. I got called a Democrat plant, stalking horse. My mom and dad's family's from Southwest Tennessee. I got called a carpetbagger because I was in the Air Force for 32 years and came into that state I ran in after I retired and those kind of things. So I know where you're at, but I'm glad you're being received warmly at the county level because we didn't get a lot of that. We got some, but we didn't get a lot of that, and that's a mark that tells me that this is entirely doable. I know when you made the decision you got in a race, you looked at it and decided it was doable too. But after you're in, you kind of get a feel. What do you hear? What are the top 3 things you're hearing from folks when you're out just chatting, standing on the street or in the room?
In terms of what specifically?
Just what are the top 3 things that are on folks' mind, the voters' minds in the Republican Party at the ground level?
Well, what they're worried about are the data centers. You know, these things have basically been slipped in under the cover of night. Massive NDA forms. Nobody knew what the heck they were until they're here. There's a couple of hundred of them. You know, massive tolls on the electricity. So basically, we're going to be subsidizing the cost of these things through rising electricity bills, which is not a net gain. They have huge tax abatements of 10, 15 years. They're not paying taxes, not helping any way that way. They're not creating any product that's good for the people. Another big reason they're here is because they need the fresh water. Lake Erie, Ohio River, rest of our rivers, the aquifers from farmers. So there's huge environmental and freshwater concern because they're massive hogs of that, and they barely create any jobs. So all these data centers are just a massive international leech on the people of Ohio and our land and resources. That's horrific. The other one is H-1Bs. These H-1B visas, 72%, I think, from India, the rest from China. Vivek wants to facilitate those. Obviously, he's basically in India, and his parents are. But the thing is, it just lets corporations have short-term profits to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars because they can hire Indian workers cheaper. Then you have way more competition because you get these Indian workers coming in that'll work for less. So that our Ohioans and Americans that have gone to school, taken out debt, worked their butts off, they've gotten good grades, they want to get a job. Now there's a ton of competition. They don't deserve that. Not to mention the fact that now the job market's the salaries are gonna be less because of that. So that is it's just absolutely terrible. The other thing is housing. One of the horrible things is like, are we going to have a future? Can our kids afford a home? You got private equity companies. You got corporations buying massive amounts of private family homes. That's not right. Then they artificially inflate the market hugely. Politicians don't say anything because they think they can get more property tax. The people don't say much because they feel like they're worth more, but they're not. So the other thing is looking at how we get rid of property tax for the homes. Yeah, some of that money goes to schools, but the thing about it is, if you do that, you give a tremendous amount of power back to the people, because then the government has to start doing things better with their money, with schools and such. And yes, it can be done, but when they go crying about what are you going to do if you end property taxes on private homes, what are we going to do to fund all these things? Well, first of all, you guys are wasteful beyond belief, and that needs to end. But the fact of the matter is, it's a way for them to scare the people that are not doing it, because what it does is puts all the power back in the people. So those are things that are being talked about. Beyond that, people just think Vivek Ramaswamy is a scammer and a slimy used car salesman and don't like him.
Yeah. What about so the AIs that are coming in there? The state didn't put a requirement on them to construct their own power generation capability. That's one of the things that we did down here in Mississippi. Is they're required to bring their own power systems in so they're not sucking off of the current system. They have to add to it.
Well, I'm smiling because you or me or any of the nice citizens, if they do things like that, think, well, they're going to help build new nuclear facilities or maybe even great coal burning plants that are clean and good. But what ends up happening, they bring in all these turbines, running lots of petroleum to augment the grid. So they're not building anything that's really helpful for anybody else that makes our grid or energy cheaper. They just do something that's in their best interest. It's creating noise and fumes and things that are bad for everybody else. And you're destroying the value of the land and everybody's homes in that area. And not to mention the fact, I'll give you another example. Over in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, there was a beautiful road racing track. There was an absolute community centerpiece, had kart tracks, beautiful permanent structures. And one of the biggest fundraising charity events in Pittsburgh going on for decades, that's where they did it. So now they can't do it because it was muscled into oblivion to become a data center because they had the infrastructure. So what are we doing to protect our heritage, our beautiful buildings, our heritage sites like racetracks, or even century-plus old farms? So things like data centers can't just come in and muscle you out for something that's a net loss to the state. So we have to change that to be a net gain. I'm not here to destroy industry. I'm here to help it, but do it in a way that's in the best interest of the people and the state.
That's why I'm a big fan of the new nuclear power technology that's out there. And they ought to be required to build nuclear plants to provide power for their own systems in the AI centers, but be able to give 50% of that power that they generate out to the rest of the grid system, so that we're getting the benefit of cheaper power because there's more availability of power. And we got to watch for that. I got to take one more break, Casey. When we come back, we'll dive a little bit more into the H-1B thing. I want to get your thoughts on the policies themselves and what, as a governor, you can do to stem that tide, because a lot of this is federal government stuff. We'll be right back with Casey Putsch, candidate for the governorship of Ohio. Oh, and I've got to ask about what an Ohio nationalist. We'll be right back.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit. and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed.
For you. Sure. What are we going to do about the H-1B and the Haitians? Well, look, I think that you have to actually ask, is somebody adding value to our country? And our immigration system needs to actually reflect it. So I did go to Springfield. We did 2 hours on it. I don't know if you were there. We're doing crime today, so we didn't, obviously not pertinent to today. But we're going to make sure those are federal policies. We've got to make sure Ohioans get jobs first. You know where it starts? With our education system. Well, that's true. Yeah, our schools are failing.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Truth Thursday. My guest is that guy's opposition. Casey Push is the America First and Ohio nationalist candidate for governor of Ohio is my guest today. Casey, you know, we keep hearing from President Trump whenever he talks about this H-1B issue. It's almost 100% of the time, and I'll paraphrase him now, not quote him, but something to the effect of, yeah, but we need those people. They're really smart. You know, we just don't have those kind of people here in the United States anymore. And I think that is, I don't know who's feeding him that information, but that is the worst lie of my generation and the generation that has followed us, because it's robbing the current up-and-coming generation from their ability to do two things: raise a family and buy a house to achieve what used to be known as the American dream.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me right now?
I got you.
There you go. You know, hey, music to my ears seeing that clip. I'm over here smiling because what Vivek's saying is absolutely absurd. You know, and sadly, with what you said, Donald Trump said, we don't have smart enough people here. We need them. Whoa, who is feeding this man this information? So let's start right there. I spent the last 11 years of my life mentoring collegiate level engineering students and technical people, because the American educational system does a bad job of bridging the gap from academia to industry, doing any practical engineering or any real world stuff. And that's the most important thing. Been doing it with them, mentoring and building everything from professional level race cars, building airplanes, mentoring them in automotive design, getting them jobs everywhere from Lockheed Martin, GM, Ford, Tesla, Marathon, and just a whole host of other incredible things. I know darn well we got smart enough people here. Heck, I've been mentoring them for the last 11 years with no help from the state or anybody else. So, you know, I'm going to take that a little personally, but also professionally, because it's wrong. You know, the other thing is, I hate to go back and use this analogy, but Orville and Wilbur Wright, heck, they were bicycle mechanics and brought us powered flight building wind tunnels. You know, over 100 years ago, you're telling me we don't have smart enough people here? Okay, great. If we don't have smart enough people here, last time I checked, India doesn't make any cool cars or have a space program or build their own great aircraft. So we're getting them over there. I don't think so. It really is BS. It just is. The H-1B thing is a way for corporations and billionaires to save hundreds of millions of dollars by completely selling out tomorrow, ruining the futures of our young people, destroying the job market that, frankly, I think Ohioans and Americans deserve to have. It's all a lie. It's all a lie. Any politician or person says we don't have smart enough people here, complete lie. We do. They want to work. And then Vivek talks about education. Oh, the jobs start with education. Well, not if you destroy it before anybody gets a chance, Vivek. Come on. But let's talk about education while he's at it. You know, his problem is he doesn't understand the American culture. Heck, he looks down his nose at it. He had his crash out saying that we're lazy and stupid because we watched Saved by the Bell. Sure, that was a sophomoric kids show, but I watched it. I built a 100-mile-a-gallon recyclable car. It's got a lower carbon footprint per mile than an EV, and it out-accelerates my Dodge Viper. I haven't seen Vivek even be able to change his own oil. So he wants us to go to school year-round as kids and more hours. Are you kidding me? It's the government. The government doesn't know what's going on. Vivek wants to put all the pressure on the teachers. It's not the teachers' fault. Support them. It's the terrible curriculums. It's shoving weird, radicalized propaganda in schools that nobody even knows what's going on. We need transparency. We need a government that gets it. With education, I've been fighting for it. But don't spit in our face and tell us it's raining. We don't have smart enough people here. The whole H-1B thing is just a scam for corporations to save hundreds of millions of dollars and wreck our future.
Yeah, I saw some numbers a few months ago that projecting that more than 26% of the STEM college graduates, so science, technology, engineering college graduates, will not be employed in their field at the 6 month point and beyond out of college this coming year, is what they're anticipating based on past performance and everything. And these kids aren't dumb. You can't be dumb and make it through those programs. Look, I'm not an engineer, but I tried to go to engineering pathway, but I ended up shifting because I didn't have the time to devote to study to it because I was a working man. So I had to get into something that I could achieve in and still have time to go to work. So I know that that is difficult, and it's got to be more difficult today than it was in 1983 when I was doing it.
Oh yeah, I got to tell you this one little story here. So that's horrific. 26% they don't have jobs. Now, first of all, what are we doing with our industry? What are we doing with not letting us building products and making things happen and outsourcing it? We need our industry back. Our young people want to work. Why in the heck don't we have jobs for them to actually build something for tomorrow and make things better, make our nation great? Worry about America, America first. What happened to that? Make America great again. We can do both. But here's the funny story. One of the best students I ever had, brilliant. He graduated school, awesome grades, unbelievable internships. He's working as a manager at an Aldi's grocery store. He can't get a job. It's the worst job market ever. So I connected with people that were fans of mine from YouTube and whatnot. One guy worked at Lockheed Martin. I said, hey, are there jobs? He's like, well, I can see some jobs that are available that aren't open to the public. So I just pulled a little bit of string and connected him.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up interviewing, getting an unbelievable job at Lockheed Martin, having an opportunity, working on stuff I don't even know, I can't even talk about, but relate to some very serious, important systems for the defense of the United States. So it can be done. We have brilliant people, but what the heck are we doing selling them out?
Yeah, and that's what we've done. Ohio's part of what used to be called the Rust Belt. You have lost I don't know how many thousands of manufacturing jobs, and now that we're getting support from this president and this administration about bringing manufacturing home, what are your plans to advocate for that, to incentivize that capability? And to bring some of that back to Ohio where it should be.
Well, Ohio's got great industry, but we built a lot going back 100 years. I mean, heck, in the Toledo, Ohio area, we want our industry back. In a lot of ways, it's like baby Detroit. So we've got people that are ready to work, primed to work, and we just need the opportunity to do it. Sweetie, I love you, but you can't take my earphones. We've got to have a future for the little ones, which I'm going to send off to mama right now.
Yeah.
But no, having what we have in Ohio with our beautiful cities and industry is like having a garage with a fully furnished toolbox, all the lists and everything in the world, and no projects, but mechanics that want to work. Really, I love you, but you can't bug daddy. Sorry, sir.
It's all right.
Okay, sweetie, go. But it's the truth. It's the truth. We got the garage, we got the toolbox, we need the opportunity to do it. We can build cars here. Heck, I built one that gets over 100 miles to the gallon. There's no support for that. Part of what I'm going to do is have corridors of innovation where you actually have support with entities and organizations that people who have great designs, pro formas, business plans, have a place that's cost effective for them to incubate and develop and have support so they can build that. So the people actually have the power again to do it.
Yeah, there we go again. The people have the power to do it. And in that clip, Vivek, I don't know if it got past. I know it didn't get past you, but in case y'all missed it, go back and watch that clip again, folks, when the post-production version of the show gets up here in a day or so, because he let it slip. Well, that's federal policy, as if he was going to try to dodge the H-1B issue and lay it off. Well, that's federal policy. There's not a whole lot I can do about that, but there is a lot you can do about it, right?
Well, absolutely. You know, that is a relationship. Obviously, as a state, we're a part of federal policy and the United States and federal government. However, there's things we can do. Okay, so let's say H-1Bs in there and companies are able to flex it, and let's say hypothetically I can't do that much about it. Well, what's to say you can't put regulation in place that you have to hire the ones coming out of the schools here first? what's to say that you can't put things on place to where the H-1B isn't even effective or worthwhile anymore? And if they're selling out the future and saying it starts with education, well, Vivek, you're worth $2 billion. And little old me with almost nothing. I spent the last 11 years of my life getting young and mentoring all the best engineering students. He's done nothing. So how about it, Vivek? How about we do something to fix education? Well, the answer's simple. He never cared, and he's here to sell us out as the globalist Trojan horse that he is.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, man. I tell you what. Well, we got about a minute and a half left here, Casey. I want to give you a chance to talk about your campaign team a little bit without giving any secrets away. Your strategy, path to victory, and where people can go to support you. That means make donations, folks.
Thank you for saying that. It's very important. That is the trouble. We're going up against some big money, and money still matters. But the beauty here is we genuinely have the people behind it. At the end of the day, the only endorsement that matters are the people in that voting booth. But we got incredible ones coming. Got a lieutenant governor pick coming right up. Got my first public appearance in Cincinnati, Ohio this Saturday. But you can go to putsch4ohio.com, P-U-T-S-C-H. Casey Putsch. You can find me on all of the social media channels. And I'm still Casey the Car Guy on YouTube. So a lot of good entertainment things in the past, but we just got to the point where it's time to stand up, represent the state, give the right option. I hate to say fight for tomorrow because every dumb politician always uses those lines, but so help me God, I'm going to make sure we have a future.
Well, I got 20 seconds left. What's an Ohio nationalist? You're the first person I've seen use that in politics or anywhere else. What is it?
Well, actually, originally I called it a Buckeye nationalist. I'm going to be proud of it because a lot of people like to say a nationalist is a bad thing. Last time I checked, the definition is just a person that prefers their country over others. Well, I do. This is my home. I got nowhere else to go, and even if I could, I wouldn't want to. So we're going to fight to make this better, and doggone it, I'm a Buckeye. Third-generation Ohio State grad. Basically, that just means you're Ohio through and through.
All right, my friend. Thanks for coming on and spending this time with us and talking about your vision, your views, and how you're going to win in Ohio to be the next governor. Casey Putsch, folks.
Sure.
All right, Monday is more Monday. Todd Wood's back with us from CDM Press, and we got a lot to talk about, obviously, with the attack on Venezuela. America is now taking its second Russian-flagged ghost ship, and some interesting things going on. I'll see you then.
But with Brandon, it's always cutting edge stuff happening in the world, and it's not just from the political angle, because you can get that on other platforms, but it's always from the biblical angle. So you're dealing with a guy that loves Jesus, you're dealing with a guy that's very intelligent, you're dealing with a guy that is cutting edge conservatism, and you're dealing with a guy that wants to be biblical all at the same time. And so for that reason alone, I hope many, many people will not just lift up his ministry in prayer, but will also financially get behind it, because he, from the angle I'm trying to describe, he really is the only game in town. And we desperately need it in these last days. Can I get an amen to that?